the ideal. So say if you come to this talk, I know it's called a talk, but you come and you listen and you have an expectation of what you want to get. So you have this ideal. Then when you come to this talk, you come into this talk with an expectation. And that's not right or wrong, but that's the reality of it. So there is an ideal, you come into the talk and then you make a judgment as to whether it suits you or doesn't suit you, dependent on your past experiences. And that's 100% okay. Where we become complicated as humans is we're often not aware of what our ideal is or our idol is in each moment. With life, the expectation or the end of the journey of life is death. This is the way we see it as humans. But this is something that we collectively made up. It's not a reality. The body transforms into something else. So that when the body is older, or sometimes when it's young, it transforms into another form. But in the human world, we have life, we have death, and we have this time in between. So we address our life with the idea of this death. And we're often unconscious of that death is in our judgments of everything. That death is held with life. There's nothing wrong with that, but what is your idea of death? Because whatever your idea or feeling of what death is, you're holding that in your current experience. So if you have the idea that death is this terrible thing that takes life away from you, that is a destroyer, that is suffering, that makes you disappear, makes you invisible, then you have this future which you're dreading. You have this monster that can potentially come at any moment. If you view death as love, if you view death as merging back with the source, even though you are the source prior to physical death, but you see death as the end of the separate experience and the merging back to the infinite, and then the birth of something new, the birth of a new experience, a new form. If you see it like that, then your experience of life is very different. You no longer are being haunted by this ideal, this unconscious ideal. You're no longer addressing life, afraid of this monster coming out of any corner. In the past, Christianity gave us the idea that death was judgment, which in a way is a very intelligent ideal to put up there, because what that says to us, or what that unconsciously does to us, is that in this life we have to live to morality. If death is judgment, then it keeps us in line. And because we're these animals that have become conscious, and because we live together as a community, it's wise to have that as an ideal. Because that's going to help us to behave better. It's not psychologically the happiest way or the best way to look at life in terms of happiness and peace, but in terms of controlling people and ruling, it's very intelligent. And then our society tells us what is godly and what isn't. Whereas to me, that's more a judgment about us living together more in harmony, or trying to live together more in harmony. Like not to steal, not to kill, to treat the neighbour like you'd want to be treated. These are, I think, an effect that happens when you don't look at death as something against you, where you look at it as love, as merging back to the infinite and birth. I think that these evil actions happen when you have the idea that death is destruction, is taking away from you, is stealing, is suffering, is disappearing. And I think the idea of judgment at the end was the attempt to try to get humans to live more in accordance with love. But maybe the more sensible way of living in accordance with love was having a better ideal, or a better idol, or a better idea of what life and death is. If we see life as good and death as evil, then that's totally a disbalanced way of looking at life. And most people, I think, do look at that life like that. That they see death as this terrible thing, and they fear it, and they try to suppress it, deny it, and through that, that's when you steal, that's when you treat people badly. So you can see it with every situation, that we go into a situation with a judgment, we go into a situation with an ideal, and then that affects our actual experience. So imagine if you go into a relationship with the ideal that the other one will save you no matter what, then there's a certain pressure on the relationship. There's a certain judgment on the relationship. It means that when the other person doesn't pick saving you or saving others, because you see others as yourself, as the highest ideal, they hurt you, they take something from you. And all of us have these judgments and these ideals. Just becoming more conscious of them, so you don't get stuck in the loops of them. I can have an open overemphasis on honesty from people in a way that can be a weakness in relationships, because I'm incredibly sensitive, and intuitive, I can often feel what people feel quicker than they can consciously recognize it. And I can often have a want for people to recognize what they want in the situation, to recognize their idol in the situation, or to have this honesty in their experience. When they can only be their level of self-awareness, they can only know themselves at that level, and I or anyone else can't push them into a deeper recognition of what's happening. Although maybe it can be helpful for people to be around me, because I do try to push them sometimes. Maybe it's a benefit. The most important thing, though, in any of this human, or beyond any of this human stuff, is the recognition that who you truly are isn't in polarities, isn't in opposites, but is here all the time. It's absolute love. Maybe you can only realize that death is love when that's recognized. And that will change on the human level your experience of life, because then the end of life has a different meaning. Okay, let's take some questions.